I saw your lips in the street. There was a little boy playing with 2 balloons.
Deborah Kerr turned it down, a future rock legend sang the theme, and the man who appeared in a joke about Doctor Who went on to actually become Doctor Who.
Excuse me, dear.
These are the secrets behind Carry On Screaming that most fans never knew.
Yes, well, we must vitrify her tonight and get her away first thing in the morning.
Fact 1. Deborah Kerr said no.
Nonsense. Living, she'd just have got old and fat.
Before Fenella Fielding stepped into the role of Valeria Watt, the production went to one of Britain's biggest film stars first. Deborah Kerr, Oscar nominee, Hollywood leading lady, was offered the role and turned it down flat. Kerr had built her reputation on prestige pictures. Playing a vampish, undead seductress in a carry-on film was not what she had in mind, and her refusal was swift. The production then turned to Fenella Fielding, who had appeared briefly in Carry On Regardless 5 years earlier. She accepted and delivered one of the most memorable performances in the entire series. What makes this remarkable is the gulf between the two actresses.
By that time I was pregnant. I thought I had something to hope for. I was almost happy the night the pains began.
Kerr was a global star with serious dramatic credentials. Fielding was a stage actress with a cult following and a voice that could stop a room.
Go on. Show me how you got overexcited.
The role needed the second one. Kerr's rejection turned out to be one of the luckiest things that ever happened to Carry On Screaming. Nobody who has seen the film can imagine anyone else in that role, but it came within a phone call of going to someone entirely different.
Heaven's sake, pull yourself together. I'll see who it is. You look after him.
Fact 2. Sid James couldn't come.
Straight from making another Carry On film, haven't you?
No, not yet. We haven't started yet.
You haven't started? No. You've just finished one, though. What was it?
The role of Detective Sergeant Sidney Bung was written with Sid James in mind. His roguish charm had anchored the Carry On series for years, and a bumbling detective investigating a gothic haunted house seemed tailor-made for him.
Don't laugh.
But James was unavailable, committed to the pantomime Babes in the Wood at the London Palladium, which ran until June 1966.
Oh, very funny.
The production turned to Harry H. Corbett, freshly available because his steptoe and son co-star Wilfrid Bramble had gone to try his luck on Broadway.
Try and look a bit more seductive. But I don't want to be seducted. Well, abandon then.
Corbett was paid £12,000, the highest fee any Carry On actor had received. Up to that point, the production kept the character name Sidney Bung, a nod to James, whose characters were almost always called Sid. Corbett never appeared in another Carry On, but audiences expecting to miss James found something different rather than lesser. A gangling, Holmesian detective whose physical comedy was entirely his own. Some still consider him the better fit for this particular film. The role James was written for turned out to suit someone else rather well.
No, I'm putting these on to take a bath.
And where do you think you're going at this time of night?
To find another woman.
Fact 3. Williams rewrote his own part.
All very well for her to say, pull yourself together. But, I mean, look what happened to Dr. Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll.
In the original script, Dr. Orlando Watt was written as Valeria's father. It was a logical setup, the older, sinister patriarch and his seductive daughter running a house of horrors together. Kenneth Williams had other ideas. Williams was 39 at the time of filming and refused to play a character old enough to be Fenella Fielding's father. He went to the producers and argued that the relationship should be changed to brother and sister so he could play closer to his actual age. The production agreed and the script was rewritten accordingly. The change is seamless in the finished film. Williams and Fielding as siblings feels completely natural. But it only exists because Williams pushed back on what he'd been given. It wasn't the only time Williams shaped his own material. Throughout the Carry On series, he was known for suggesting line changes, arguing about characterization, and making his discomfort with certain scenes very clear in his private diaries. The diaries also record his ambivalence about the film itself. He found some of the material beneath him, Yet his performance as the electrically powered mad scientist is one of the most committed and inventive things he ever did in the series. Williams complained loudly and delivered brilliantly. That was his way.
I hate these honest, law-abiding people. Why can't everyone be thoroughly horrid, like us?
Yes, I will see him, Socket.
Fact 4. Hawtrey was a last-minute addition.
Oh, hello. Morning, gents. Like a nice wash, would you?
Charles Hawtrey was not originally part of the cast. The role of lavatory attendant Dan had been assigned to a different actor entirely, until the American distributors got involved. Hawtrey had become a crowd pleaser with US audiences, and the American distribution company specifically requested he be added. The production obliged, replacing the original actor at the 11th hour. The result is one of the stranger footnotes in Carry On history. Hawtrey received a full leading credit, despite appearing on screen for less than 5 minutes. The only actor in the series to achieve that particular distinction. His character's name, Dan, is a play on the old music hall phrase, Dan, the lavatory man.
They're talking to Dan.
Dan?
Dan, the gardening man, you know.
And Hawtrey brings his usual distracted, otherworldly quality to the brief scenes he has before Oddbod silences him. The American market's appetite for Hawtrey remained a curiosity throughout the series. His specifically English brand of camp comedy translated across the Atlantic in ways that surprised even the production team. He was their unexpected transatlantic asset.
Mrs. Peabody. Hello, Mrs. Peabody.
Fact 5. The theme had a secret singer.
Carry on screaming.
The opening theme song sets the gothic comedy tone perfectly. For years, audiences assumed it was sung by Jim Dale, who appears prominently in the film. The credits offered no help. The singer was listed simply as Anon.
Everybody's getting goose pimples, cold icy fingers that run up your spine.
The actual singer was Ray Pilgrim, a session musician who worked for the Embassy label and had no connection to the film beyond this one piece of work. He remained anonymous for decades, while Jim Dale quietly neither confirmed nor denied the assumption. The mystery deepened further when a vinyl single of the song was released in 1966 by an entirely different performer, Boz Burrell, credited on the Columbia label. At the time, Burrell was an unknown session singer. He later became the bassist for King Crimson and then Bad Company, two of the most significant rock bands of the 1970s. A throwaway theme for a British comedy horror film was recorded by a future rock legend. Nobody involved knew it at the time. Burrell never mentioned it publicly. The connection only emerged years later when music historians began tracing his early career.
Carry on screaming. Carry on screaming.
The Carry On series had accidentally given a rock star one of his first credits. Fact 6. It was a record-breaking hit.
What time is it?
Just past December.
I told you not to call me till the beginning of March.
Carry On Screaming is sometimes discussed as a modest entry in the series. The box office figures tell a different story entirely. Nat Cohen of Anglo-Amalgamated announced publicly that Screaming had grossed the biggest take in the history of his company. For a distributor that had been releasing films for decades, that was a remarkable statement. The irony is that this enormous success did not save the relationship between the series and Anglo-Amalgamated. Cohen had decided to move the company upmarket regardless of how much money the Carry-Ons were making. Screaming was therefore the last Carry-On distributed by Anglo-Amalgamated. The Rank organisation took over from the next film. The series lost its founding distributor at the moment of one of its greatest commercial triumphs. The film that broke all of Anglo-Amalgamated's records was also the film that ended their partnership. Success changed nothing, because the decision had already been made on grounds that had nothing to do with the numbers.
Oh, bad luck. Oh, well, I mean, bad luck finding a rear like that.
Fact 7. Fielding's career never recovered.
Only you weren't so necessary to me. Enough. Let me go.
Fenella Fielding's performance as Valeria Watt is one of the great comic seductive turns in British film history. It also, by her own account, damaged her career in ways she spent decades trying to manage. She told The Independent in 2008 that the role had set her on a path she found difficult to escape. People still thought of her in a certain way because of the Carry On films, regardless of what else she had done. The most painful example came directly after Screaming. Federico Fellini, director of La Dolce Vita, saw Fielding perform on stage and wanted to cast her. He had never heard of Carry On. He simply responded to what he saw. Fielding had already committed to a theatre production at Chichester and felt she couldn't withdraw. She turned Fellini down. She later described it as the thing she truly regretted. Not the Carry On films, but the opportunity that came immediately after and slipped away. Valeria Watt made her iconic. It also, in a very specific way, made her invisible, reducing one of Britain's most genuinely gifted performers to a single image on a chaise longue, asking, "Do you mind if I smoke?"
Do you smoke?
Not on duty, miss.
Well, do you mind if I smoke?
Of course not, miss.
Fact 8. Pertwee became Doctor Who.
I don't even know your name.
Smith. Dr. John Smith.
Among the supporting cast is a name Doctor Who fans will recognise immediately. John Pertwee plays Dr. Fettle, a minor role, but one with an extraordinary piece of trivia attached. The film contains a joke built around its villain's name.
I tell it!
Doctor! What on earth do you think you're doing? Venusian karate. It's very effective.
Dr. Watt is a deliberate reference to Doctor Who, which was enormously popular at the time. At one point, Williams' character remarks that Doctor Who is his uncle. Or was. He hasn't seen him for years. 3 years after the film was released, John Pertwee, who played Dr. Fettle, was cast as the third Doctor in the actual Doctor Who television series.
Very flexible, you know. Could be useful on the planet Delphon where they communicate with their eyebrows.
The man in a film parodying Doctor Who went on to become Doctor Who. The connections don't stop there. Pertwee's first Doctor Who storyline involved shop window dummies that came to life, an echo of screaming central plot about people being turned into mannequins.
Oh, come on, Doctor. If I'm supposed to be your assistant, there must be something I can do.
Well, there is.
What?
Go away.
A throwaway joke about Doctor Who in a 1966 comedy horror film was made by an actor who would play the character 3 years later. The Carry On series accidentally predicted its own supporting cast's future.
Are you saying that this finger's come off something that has been dead for 500 years? No, don't about it. Dead as a doornail.
Fact 9. It influenced British horror.
Not now.
There is something in those bushes.
Carry On Screaming arrived at the precise peak of Hammer Horror's commercial dominance, and its relationship to that tradition is more layered than simple parody. The production borrowed directly from Hammer's visual language: the Gothic mansion, the fog-wreathed exteriors, the impossible laboratory. The exterior woodland scenes were filmed at Black Park in Buckinghamshire, the same location being used by Hammer for their actual horror films at the same time.
Sergeant, yes, you! It's him! You great Stephen Nick! What are you trying to do? Ride me to death?
The Carry On team and the Hammer team were shooting in the same woods for entirely different purposes. Where Hammer played its conventions straight, Screaming deployed them with affectionate mockery. But the traffic went both ways. Hammer productions released after Screaming showed an increasing willingness to acknowledge the absurdity of their own genre conventions. Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee were aware of the film and reportedly amused by it. The central joke, that horror cinema's conventions were so established they could be played for laughs, was one that Hammer's own team had quietly begun to recognise.
You go and have a look around. You're supposed to be the great detective.
The film exists in a genuine dialogue with British horror cinema that its reputation as knockabout comedy tends to obscure. It is both celebration and gentle demolition of everything Hammer had built, and it managed both without losing the comedy or the atmosphere.
Are you sure those are your feet? Of course they're mine. Who do you think they are?
Fact 10. Critics hated it at first.
Could I see the master of the house?
He's been dead 15 years now.
fact, when Carry On Screaming was released in 1966, the critical response was hostile in a way that now seems almost bewildering. The Monthly Film Bulletin, then one of Britain's most respected film publications, called it glum stuff, even by Carry On standards. The Times was equally dismissive, describing it as one of the dullest and least spirited entries in the series. Several reviewers singled out Kenneth Williams as appearing bored, which anyone who watches the film today will find extraordinary given how alive his performance actually is.
What's he after?
The same as he was after last night, I imagine.
Part of the problem was snobbery. The Carry On series was never taken seriously by the critical establishment, and Screaming received the same reflexive dismissal as its predecessors. Part of it was also timing. The horror parody format was less familiar to British audiences than it later became, and the tonal balance took some viewers by surprise. The reassessment began slowly in the 1970s as television repeats allowed audiences to revisit the film at their own pace. Multiple viewings revealed what single cinema visits had obscured: the precision of Fielding's timing, the genuine wit of Rothwell's dialogue, the consistency of the gothic atmosphere.
I do wish Junior would learn to use the door.
It now consistently ranks among the top 2 or 3 Carry-On films in audience polls, alongside Khyber and Cleo. The critics who dismissed it in 1966 could not have imagined that assessment. The audience, as it turned out, was considerably ahead of the reviewers. They packed cinemas and broke box office records while the critics were writing it off.